All right, guys, if you're still with me, you are better than most, that's for sure. We're scratching and surviving next. All right, guys, it has been a brutal year for survivor pools. Just big teams just keep going down. Tampa last week and New England, two of the top highest picked teams. Certainly, New England was going to be the most picked team in your pool by far, probably. Maybe Vegas next, and then Tampa. So, New England never really in that game. They get the lead there 14-10, and then the Bears just never look back, score, and they were off to the races. So, that was a little bit of a surprise. And then maybe the even bigger surprise was Tampa losing. So, listen, these things happen. That's the way the pool has been all year. I don't think we've had a week where it just was easy week. Everyone won and very few picks eliminated. Been a crazy, crazy season. Someone asked me in the comments about last week's video, how do you deal with the loss? How do you not second guess yourself? And it's a great question. I do this for a living. I do daily fantasy and sports betting. Of course, I'm over at the Sharp app. If you guys want to check out the app and say hi, you can get in our Discord, download the app. There's a link down below. And then jump in our Discord. You could always chat with me in there. But when you do this on a professional level, and certainly even not being a professional, you have to be able to train yourself to handle both the wins and the losses and try and keep your emotions in check. I've had several dozen, not several dozen, maybe a couple of dozen six-figure hits in daily fantasy sports, but I've had days where I've lost five figures multiple times as well. So you've got to be able to maintain the emotions and not get too high, get too low. Certainly losses hurt more than wins. You'll see that even with just look at head coaches in the NFL. You'll see a coach who's had a lot of success in the league towards the end of his career. They'll tell you that they just couldn't take the losses anymore and the wins just weren't as fun. I think that just stems back to how we evolved, right? We had limited amount of resources. The world wasn't like it is now. We live in a absolutely amazing time when you think about the history of the world and how lucky we are to live in this time and in the West for sure, to be just how rich, no matter how poor you are in the West, you are far richer than anyone ever was in the history of the world, including the rich way back when, right? So we had limited resources, and because of that, I think we evolved to the point where losing what you already have becomes very difficult to handle. And of course, if you lose something, gaining something doesn't necessarily give you that same satisfaction, or it's not exactly the same amount of emotion on the flip side as when you lose something, right? So there was a study done. I've talked about this before. Many of you probably haven't heard it, but there was a study done on golfers. I believe it was in the book Freakonomics. If you ever want to check that book out, fantastic book. But there was a study done about golfers, and golfers who had 10-foot putts for par and 10-foot putts for birdie, same putt. Which one do you think they made more often? Now, they really should make both of those putts at an even amount, right? They should hit the putts the same. There's no reason for them not to, but there really is a reason, because in a golfer's mind, when they have a 10-foot putt for par, these pro golfers, they've already lost. Now, when they have a 10-foot putt for birdie, they've already won. So when you win, what do you want to do? You want to hoard when you have resources. So in their mind, it's a win. They don't want to make a bogey, so they just kind of be cautious with the putt, get it up to the hole. If it goes in, it goes in. If not, so be it. They make a par. When they have that par putt, in their mind, they're 50-50 to make this putt. It's already a loss in their mind, right? Because they're figuring it's not a gimme that they're going to make the putt. It's a loss in their mind. And now when they go ahead and make the putt, they're more aggressive. So they wind up making more of those putts. Now, the inverse is, and I don't have the data on this, but I'm sure they also make more bogeys than those who are putting for birdie as well, right? Because they're taking more risks. They're going to be a little bit more aggressive with the putt. They don't mind leaving the putt 3 feet past the hole, 3.5 feet past the hole, things like that. So we tend to be more aggressive. When we are behind. You'll see it also in baseball. A pitcher who starts 3-0 on a count, comes back to 3-2, is more successful than a pitcher who starts 0-2 and then goes 3-2, because they feel like at 0-2 they had something, and now they lost it when they get to 3-2. They're giving the at-bat away, even though they're in the same position as the person who was 3-0, who already thought they lost that at-bat and now gets to 3-2. And of course, the inverse happens, the flip side of that, with the batter. They were ahead 3-0, now they're 3-2, and they feel like they've now given the pitcher the advantage. They've let them back in the at-bat. So you can understand that it actually works. Like, psychologically, this works, and we could see it in real sports. You guys are no different. None of us are different in that aspect. So when we are getting close in the pool, we're starting to count that money, and we're starting to figure out, I can buy a Tesla, I can pay off my student loans, whatever it is that you're thinking, and depending on how large of a pool it is, you're already starting to spend that money. Bad thing to do. You can't look at this in terms of the actual money. You have to try and look at it as if there was no money involved. Very, very difficult to do. It's kind of what sociopaths are able to do. I have a trading background, and I had read this book years ago. I cannot remember the name of the book, but it was on psychology of trading. And the author, she had mentioned that they had studied sociopaths and traders, and they basically have very similar, the most successful traders really had sociopathic tendencies because the money really didn't mean anything to them. So again, of course, the money means something to you, but you have to try and train yourself to where the money doesn't, so that you can make sound decisions. You will make much better decisions when you don't factor that money in as being something that's going to change your life, even if it will. Hard to do, much easier to talk about, very difficult to do. But the more you get involved in these pools and betting and trading, whatever it is, it's much better. You're going to be much better off when you could separate that. You'll think straighter. And then what I told this person who had asked about this in the comments is, once you guys who are here are going to be ahead of the game anyway, right? You're already thinking deeper than most people in your pool. So you've made a sound decision already. If you took New England or Tampa last week, that's not on you. That's just on them. None of these things are absolute. We're not going to win 100%. None of these games are 100% winners. If you lose with a 2-touchdown favorite like Tampa was, what are you going to do? You got Tom Brady. He's a 2-touchdown favorite. Carolina, terrible team, no quarterback. It happens, though. As we said, they weren't going to win this 100% of the time. There was maybe 17% of the chance that Carolina was going to win, and that 17% hit this weekend. If you ever play poker and you've played for any length of time, you've been beaten by a one-outer, right? There was 48 cards left in the deck. Well, 46 when you figure in, let's say, your 2 cards. So your 2 cards, 4 cards on the board, 6 cards available. There's 1 card for, and let's say we know what the other cards are, right? We know what the other person needs. So there's 44 cards, 1 in 44 chance that person is going to hit the card that they need to beat you. And they do it. It's going to happen. If you play long enough, it's going to happen. Certainly in the NFL, it's going to happen. But that doesn't mean you made the wrong decision in poker, right? If you called in that situation and that person only has 1 out to beat you, you obviously made the right call. From that point on, it's out of your hands, right? I talked about this in the comment I made also. I heard this about putters. I forget if it was Norman or Nicholas. One of the greats had mentioned, I think it was Nicholas, where, listen, the grass is a living creature, right? When you putt, all you can do is line up the putt. If you line it up and read it correctly and you put a good stroke on it, from the moment it leaves your putter, that's it. You did everything else. You took the time, you stood up behind the putt, you read it, you looked at the alignment, you put a good stroke on it. After that, it's just kind of luck if it goes in or not, assuming that you read it properly. So if you read the putt properly and it just goes offline by a little bit, that's going to happen. Greens they're imperfect, right? So if you get yourself in that mentality, you're not going to get yourself as upset. You're not going to get as emotionally involved, and you will make smarter decisions, not just here with the Survivor pools, but you're going to make smarter decisions in all aspects of life. So we dove into that maybe a little longer than we needed to. So hopefully you guys are still with me here. Let's just jump into Survivor Grid. It's getting super interesting here in these pools. If you're still with me and you're still in your pool, congratulations, of course. But we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. I want to look at the one pool I'm in, And I already X'd out some of the teams that I've taken, all of the teams I've taken. And if you don't know this in Survivor Grid, if you just click on the team, right? So if you click on Dallas here, it will exit out. That's going to help you when you're making your picks. So when you're on Survivor Grid, go ahead and click these. I know a lot of you probably didn't realize that, but you can do that, and it's going to help you with your picks. Now, I'm in a pool where I'm one of three. I had Tampa last week. So did one other person. One person could not take Tampa. They took New England wisely, and they had it all to win on Monday night and lost. So the way the rules in that pool work is if everyone gets knocked out in the same week, we all continue. So the three of us are going to continue into next week. Now, if you look at my particular pool, I've taken two of the better teams in the league. Buffalo, by far right now, the best team in the league, and I've taken them. And that is because I've been taking the chalky picks as we go. But I mentioned, with Buffalo, yes, every single week here, as you can see, they're going to be a potential play. But in almost all of those weeks, we had other options. So that's why I wasn't afraid to take Buffalo to get me an advance even further. And as we see this week, okay, it's the third choice with Dallas. Now, my opponents, I believe, can both take Philadelphia, and only one can take Buffalo. So I'm just looking at it now. And yes, one of them can take Buffalo. They both can take Philadelphia. So my guess here is that I'll get the one person who could take Buffalo. Actually, we're probably going to get two on Pittsburgh. That's going to be, or Philadelphia. That's going to be my guess. They're both going to take Philly. The one with Buffalo is going to hold off on Buffalo for another week. And if that's the case, that's fine. I'm good either way. If the one takes Philly, one takes Buffalo, I'm on Dallas. Yes, I am the dog, but I'm a slight dog here. But it's going to get them. They're going to catch up to me. Now, one person in the pool has taken, actually, they've both taken Cincinnati. When we look to next week and who we can take, if they're out of Buffalo and Philly and they're out of Cincinnati, now they're looking at Kansas City, right? We can all take Kansas City, but now look at week 10. If we get to week 10, they may be forced to take Kansas City in week 9, and I'll be sitting here with the best team in week 10. So my road here is not that much different than theirs as far as in the next 2 weeks, as far as who I can take. But I'm going to be a slight dog here this week. I'm definitely going to have, if they both take Buffalo and Philadelphia, and they're in the same boat as me, and they take Kansas City, I've got a decent advantage here in week 9, and then I can take Kansas City in week 10, and I'm going to have an even bigger advantage, right? So I'm giving up a small advantage here, which I don't love, in order to have a big advantage come week 9 and week 10. So, of course, as we know, not easy to get by any of these weeks, but I'm going to get myself a 9 to 10 point favorite here with Dallas. I'm going to be a slight dog. I have no choice in the matter, so this is not a strategic play. I don't have a choice, but as you saw, I'm going to have the advantage come week 9, week 10, so I don't mind that. Matter of fact, I do like it. And, of course, there's a chance here one of them get knocked out. I could get knocked out as well, but one of these guys could get knocked out, or both get knocked out here this week, and I take the pool down. So that's kind of what we're looking at here in the smaller pools. Now, if I was in a small pool and I had everyone available to me, if I had all these top teams available, which way am I going? This is a tough call, right? And you're going to have to make this choice. I don't want to get too deep into it because some of you are going to have Buffalo left. Some of you are going to have Philly left. Some of you have neither left like I do. Some may have taken Dallas already. You're going to have to make that determination. But I would look to the next couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. Also check who your opponents have. And then leave the comment down below, and I'll go over it with you guys. But definitely be sure to check who your opponents have this week and who they have in these future weeks, because that's going to change who you potentially may take in your pool this week. So we'll go over that in the comments and in the Discord when you guys chat me up in the Discord. Let's just quickly look at the spreadsheet. And when we look at the sheet, I just have it right now at 100. I do not have 5 entries left in my big pool. You guys have been following. I am down to 1 entry. I had 2 Tampas and 2 New England's with 1 Vegas. Now we're down to about 270 people in that pool. I am one of 270. The pot is, I don't know if it's something over $500,000. So obviously a pretty good pot, but I'm still a long ways away from winning. And I've got double picks coming up in week 9. Actually, let's just look at that If you'll bear with me, you'll ride along with me on my picks. But I've got week 9. I'm gonna have to make 2 picks, and I'm gonna have to see who I've got left in that pool. Of course, different pool than the one where I've only got 3. I can check on that quickly if you want to bear with me here. I'm going to do that for you, and if you guys even care. But in that pool, I've taken New Orleans, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Chargers, Minnesota, New England, the Rams, and Vegas, because we've had double picks in that pool as well. So I have more picks than most. So I do have Philly left in that, which is nice. I've got Kansas City left, which is nice. I've used Cincinnati. As we talked about, Cincinnati's going to be a team that possibly you would take next week. But I do have the ability here. I can't take, who did I say I took? I took Buffalo, so I could take Philly and Kansas City. Those would be the 2 best options. And then the following week, who would I have? I'd be on the Giants. So, yeah, I mean, just kind of looking at it from that respect, I could go that route. But in this week, does it hurt me to take Dallas with the pick this week? That's really the question, right? So I may not want to take Philly. May want to hold off on Philly because I'm going to need them next week. I'm going to need that Philly pick next week with 2 picks. So I'm definitely going to hold off on Philly. And then I'm looking at Dallas. So the spreadsheet's not going to tell you everything. We got to kind of look at everything in a combination. But let's just take a look at the spreadsheet. Now, if I do 100%, which is probably a little much, let's take it down to 75%. And, of course, it's 1 entry. It likes Dallas. So, I mean, that does make sense. They're not as much future value, of course, as Buffalo and Philly. Now, I could also get behind taking Atlanta here in a large pool. Now, it's, of course, a much riskier play. But does it get me... Actually, I say that, but let's double check it. Because does it get me anywhere? Do I have an advantage here in doing so in future weeks? That's really going to be the key. Is there a week here where Dallas is just going to be such a good pick that I have to take them? Now, Dallas against the Giants. Who are my other picks? Buffalo, Miami. If you've got those teams left, if you've got San Francisco, you probably don't have to take Dallas here. Buffalo and Philly, Dallas, week 13. That's going to be tricky, but you might have Minnesota left and Baltimore. Tampa, who knows right now, against New Orleans if that team gets better. You're going to have the Rams against Seattle. That doesn't look all that great either right now. But we'll see. By the time we get to week 13, things change. As we could see, Tampa, certainly the sentiment has changed with Tampa. We've seen that team not be very good this year. So it's a little tough to reach out to week 13. I'm not too worried about then taking Dallas here, and we'll try to figure it out come week 13. So I think in larger pools, you're safe taking a little bit of a chalky pick here with Dallas. If you're in a large pool, or if you're in a small pool, it's really going to depend on who everyone has left. This is when you start getting into game theory. Also, what I want you guys to start thinking about is hedging, especially in a small pool. The smaller the pool, the more you can hedge. And you're going to want to look at, if you're in a toss-up between a couple of teams, take the team playing later. So if you get a team playing the Sunday night game or the Monday night game, as opposed to 1 o'clock on Sunday, that's going to give you more information. It's going to allow you to hedge. So if you have access to a sports book, you're in a state where it's legal, you may want to start hedging. And hedging is going to be a little tricky, and you may want to ask down in the comments. I'll be happy to help you guys out with some hedging strategies. It's, of course, easier when you're down to 2 people if you want to hedge, and you have the night game. Of course, if you got the Buffalo game, right, I believe the Buffalo game is the night game this week, right? Is that the Sunday night game, I believe? So if I'm correct about that, and Buffalo's the Sunday night game, and you have Buffalo, and now your opponents have lost, and you get a chance to win the entire pool, you can win $10,000 on the Buffalo game, then it may be worth putting a couple of dollars, $500, $1,000, whatever you're comfortable hedging with. And you don't want to hedge too much on that pick, because if you win, you're going to, of course, delete all of your profits. So if you want to do 1,000, 2,000, depends on what you want to do. You're going to take it on the money line. So that money line is going to be somewhere, where is it? On my spreadsheet, the Buffalo money line. So you're going to want the Green Bay money line at probably something like plus 450 or something like that. So if you wanted to bet that to win a couple of $1,000, it's going to be about a less than a $500 bet, right, to win a couple of $1,000. So you may want to go ahead and do that and put in a little bit of a hedge, right? Because now you've got 10,000 worth of equity because the pot's worth 10,000. You're the only one remaining. You just need to win your pick and you advance. And the nice thing is if you lose and you advance like I did in my pool, you're going to win your bet. So that's going to be 2,000 in your pocket and you still have a crack at the 10,000. That hypothetical $10,000 number. If the other person wins, now you've got 5,000 in equity and maybe you want to lower your hedge bet, right? You don't have as much equity in the pot. Maybe you just lower that bet. Maybe you lower it by half and then you bet $200 or $250 on a plus 450 money line on Green Bay. If Green Bay goes ahead and wins that game, you lose the pot, you lose the pool, but you're going to hit your bet. And of course, if Buffalo wins, you advance in the pool, you're going to take a little bit of a hit on your bet. You're going to lose a couple of bucks, but the fact that there's few people in there, you probably won't go that many weeks. So you're able to hedge a little bit more than if you had 100 people or 200 people in a pool. It becomes a lot more difficult in the larger pools. Anyway, guys, I've gone on quite a bit here today. I appreciate all the support and comments and everything that you guys have been giving us here. Again, download the Sharp app if you get a chance. We really appreciate the support. And good luck this week. It's only getting trickier from here on out. Let's try to take the money down. Good luck.